Life, like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, is not an anime. In fact, life is more like, I don't know, a brownie batter and yellow cake batter milkshake, in the sense that you're confused by the whole idea, you spend so long trying to figure it out, and before you know it, you are heavily invested in a wrestling show and you don't know why. And there's money involved, and it's confusing. This is Raw Graded. Drew McIntyre gets us started. He's in his pomp about retaining his WWE title last week, despite the help or hindrance of R-Truth, and he's interrupted by the newest arrival to Monday Night Raw, Dolph Ziggler, who reveals that the trade for AJ Styles was basically him and Robert Roode. He then talks about the history that Ziggler has with Drew McIntyre and says that Drew owes him a shot at the WWE Championship. Drew reflects on his time with Dolph Ziggler, says he's become what they always despise. He's become an entitled jackass, but agrees to the match, agrees to give him what he wants, but warns him that he is going to become what Dolph always coined him, which was a Scottish psychopath with the title on the line. And the match is set. Extreme Rules. It's going to be Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre for the WWE title. Opening promo gets a B from me. Good back and forth with these guys. Like the way that they drifted back into their legit history on screen and made that a part of the deal. My only thing is that, like, Dolph is great, but he's such an also-ran at this moment in time that I don't buy for a single second that he's beating Drew McIntyre. I probably bought Bobby winning the belt more than Dolph taking it from Drew. Regardless, it was a good way to start Raw. Nia Jax heads out, she pulls up a chair and takes Raw hostage, basically, complaining that Charlotte Flair has got what she wanted in a women's title match, complaining about the referee from her match last week, and R-Truth makes his way out to defend his 24/7, 7-Eleven, I-95, yada yada yada, championship against Akira Tozawa, the ninja. However, he can't see Akira Tozawa unless he concludes that Nia Jax is actually Akira Tozawa in disguise. Then Tozawa appears behind the commentary table, to which R-Truth goes, "Two Akira Tozawas!" Ninjas turn up, R-Truth legs it, Nia Jax back in the ring, sat in a chair on her own again, and then Charlotte Flair interrupts her. They have a bit of a back and forth where Nia Jax says that Charlotte has always just been, you know, the daughter of Ric Flair, and Charlotte says, actually, Ric Flair refers to himself as Charlotte Flair's dad these days. That was quite a fun line. Back and forth between these two. Nia Jax reminds Flair that Flair's never beaten her. The last time they faced each other, at least, Nia Jax gave her a kick in, and she's the one that's going to take the crown from Charlotte. They fight, they scuffle. In the fight, we see Charlotte start holding her arm. Charlotte's hurt her arm. That'll play into later on in the night, I do believe. B- for this bit. I love the interactions with all the elements here, like R-Truth and the ninjas turning up. R-Truth and Nia Jax were fun. Some good lines from Jax and Charlotte, but I find Jax quite wooden in some of her delivery. And I feel bad. I feel like I always dogpile onto Nia Jax. Can't help it, but it's what it is. It wasn't terrible. It's a B-. The Raw Tag Team titles on the line now. The Viking Raiders and the Street Profits. Before the match started, they said they're not like the NWO for life. They are forever. Viking Profits are going to be the besties until the end of time. But tonight, it's all about the Raw Tag Team titles. Once they finish this powwow backstage, we see Zelina Vega lurking in the shadows, like that gif of Tim Heidecker as Spaghetti. You know the one. They have the match. It's a really fast-paced match. We see Viking Raiders very dominant over Profits. Amazing bit in this match where Montez Ford does a senton to the outside of the ring and Eric catches him perfectly and powerbombs him into Angelo Dawkins. We see Eric a bit later on do a powerbomb onto both of them once Ivar stacks them up. It was really cool. Match carries on. We see Street Profits hit the Viking Experience for a near fall, but at the end of this, it all ends up being all about the Street Profits, who wipe out Ivar with the cash out, that spinebuster splash combo for a clean 1, 2, 3. They celebrate together at the end of the match as Viking Raiders make their way to the back. Suddenly, we see Ford and Dawkins jumped by Angel Garza and Andrade. That's why Vega was lurking. Raiders run in and run them off to end the segment. B+ for me. This was a really fun match. This is the best match that these two have had. If the sporting challenges have done anything, it's obviously built some chemistry between the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits, and that can't be a bad thing, can it? Rey Mysterio returns tonight. Seth Rollins does a piece to camera saying that what happens to Dominic is on Rey Mysterio. He says that legends never die, but they do outstay their welcome. Good line. Charlie Caruso speaks to Charlotte Flair backstage, who's got her arm all taped up, asking her if she's going to be okay to compete for the Raw Women's title tonight. And Charlotte says, my arm will be fine once it's raising the championship. Nice line. And then we go from there into Andrade, Angel Garza and Zelina Vega. They're being interviewed by Charlie Caruso, sort of drift from one into the other. Garza's a sleazeball towards Caruso. Vega is very strict, and she says that these two have put their differences aside and they're now going for the Raw Tag Team Championships. I kind of had a feeling this would be where this goes with these guys. You know what? Not even mad. I think Street Profits versus Garza and Andrade, there's something in that. I'm up for that. Next, the Raw Women's Championship hangs in the balance. Asuka versus Charlotte Flair. Even with an injured arm, Charlotte is able to get quite a bit of offense in on Asuka throughout this, but the arm does play into the majority of this match. We get to the end of the match where, despite a big boot and a spear, Asuka's still in this thing. She's used kickouts and the ropes to make sure she breaks away from it. But Charlotte hits a power bomb on Asuka, and as she comes down, Asuka manages to spin Charlotte around, turn it into an Asuka lock, really wrenching back on that bad arm and getting the tap-out victory over Charlotte to retain the Raw Women's Championship. B+ for me. This was a really good encounter. They worked really hard in this, and I feel like the injury to Charlotte just leaves that question mark hanging over the Charlotte-Asuka match. Like, we can do this again, and you can always play up the fact that, oh, Charlotte was injured going into it. The one thing that irked me was how much offense Charlotte still got, despite the fact that she is basically one arm down against one of the best wrestlers on the planet. But she was still incredibly dominant in the match. But regardless of that, it was still a really good match. I still really enjoyed it. But those things brought it back for me. It's a B+. After a recap of last week's shenanigans between Christian, Randy Orton and Ric Flair, we get a straight-to-camera promo from Edge. Why are you putting A+ up? I haven't graded it yet. I know I always give these A+, but this might have been rubbish. This might have been a D. Why are you there? Thank you. It wasn't rubbish. Edge was brilliant here. Talks about how frustrated he was that Orton got the low blow. Orton couldn't get the job done at Backlash using a low blow. Edge is annoyed that he didn't do it himself. He talks about how it felt to not be able to pick up his daughter on Father's Day. Talks about how he felt watching his best friend get punted by Randy Orton, and you can feel the anger in his voice welling up. He thanks Randy Orton for helping to tap into that dormant side of him that he needs to pull out of himself now. He talks about he doesn't care about winning anymore. He talks about wanting to embarrass and emasculate Randy Orton. He says, "You are going to wish that Cowboy Bob was firing blanks the night that you were conceived." Oh! Whoa! Edge says he will seep into every part of Orton's life. He will break his life down brick by brick. He tells Orton he has woken up the evil. He has woken up the rated R superstar. All right, you can come back. It's an A+. Edge has just been outstanding ever since he came back. He has essentially schooled so many younger wrestlers in how you do these promos. He absolutely has. And the amazing part is that, like, I feel like every promo he does, he gets a little bit better. And it's just great. It's just great. After this, we cut to Randy Orton, who's backstage, and you just see, and it's just a little split thing, and I loved it. You just see Orton, like, staring into the distance. His mouth's a little bit wide open, like he's obviously heard this. He's interviewed by Charlie Caruso, and he talks about how when a snake is backed into a corner, it attacks wildly. And he says that Christian and Edge have backed him into a corner and he's had to attack. And he then says he has some business to attend to with Ric Flair. And he says that Christian and Edge can still live really happy, healthy lives if they stay out of his way. Just, Orton! Why can't you be like this all the time? Charlotte Flair is icing her shoulder backstage, interviewed by Charlie Caruso, and she's attacked by Nia Jax, who works over the shoulder, throws Charlotte shoulder first into the training ring turnbuckle, like the post, and it gives a very satisfying ding as it does. And she then traps it into a wooden box, and she's banging the box down. Then people come up and separate them, and you can tell that Charlotte Flair is suffering. An aggressive side of Nia Jax, obviously building to Nia Jax versus Charlotte, maybe. Back in the ring, the 24/7, 7-Eleven, I-95, yada 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 championship is on the line. R-Truth defending against Akira Tozawa, who is flanked by a gaggle of ninjas. Or is it an apology of ninjas? Is it a flock of ninjas? Is it a shoal of ninjas? Anyway, a lot of ninjas out there. Before the match can get underway, Bobby Lashley, the MVP, stormed the ring. Akira takes her powder, hides under the ring. Lashley and MVP are just battering these ninjas. Bobby Lashley does this one-armed spinebuster slam onto the apron, onto one. The guy nearly left gravity. It was phenomenal. Then Lashley gets into the ring, puts the full Nelson on R-Truth and wipes him out, and then takes his leave, having just released some frustration. Then Akira Tozawa reappears, climbs into the ring, pins R-Truth, boom! Brand new 24/7 champion, Akira Tozawa. Giving this segment a B-. It was fun. And I think a big part of the grade is the fact that Akira Tozawa is a champion in WWE again. Very happy with this. And the flipping spinebuster from Lashley. Sheebus! Check on that ninja. He might be two ninjas now. Liv Morgan takes on Natalya now. Natalya is accompanied by her new associate, Lana, who plays dividends in this match. Very aggressive side to Natalya in this short little affair. Very brutal on Liv Morgan. The fight slips to the outside and Morgan starts to get back into it. Throws Natalya back into the ring. And as Liv Morgan's getting back into the ring, she's distracted by Lana, which leads Natalya to hit a chop block followed by a sharpshooter for the submission win. And then Natalya just doesn't quite let go of the sharpshooter straight away. Just holds on a little bit too long, which is a nice little bit of healing maneuver in there. C+ for this. It was all right. There wasn't loads to it. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't the best thing I've seen all night. It was fine. It did the job for what it needed to do. I'm intrigued to see more of this Natalya-Lana partnership. I don't know if I'm completely sold on it yet as a thing, but we'll see. Back in the ring, Ric Flair is addressing Charlotte Flair's injury at the hands of Nia Jax, warning Jax that trouble is coming her way. And then he moves on to Randy Orton and introduces Orton to the ring and also introduces him as the greatest performer ever. I'm sure he was meant to say the greatest wrestler ever, but even so, Ric Flair anointing Randy Orton as the best. Orton talks about the difference between nostalgia and legacy, whereas it's nostalgia to see Ric Flair back and Edge back and Christian back. Orton is building a legacy. Out comes Big Show, who just before this said he was going to leave the smiling giant backstage and bring out the big nasty giant to confront Orton and Flair. And he did that by walking out going, "Enough! Enough! Blah, blah, blah." In the ring, he calls Randy Orton, and I like this, a narcissistic parasite, saying that he leeches off people who are better than him. Oh, slams. Randy Orton goes back and forth with the Big Show as well, and Randy Orton says, look, we've been friends forever. We broke in around the same time in WWE. I don't know if he did, but either way. Because I'm sure Big Show did it a couple of years. Yeah, of course he did. What we're talking about. And Orton says, look, if you don't want to suffer the same fate as Edge and Christian, you need to step away. And Big Show is just like ready for a fight. And he sort of positions himself ready to fight. Orton rolls out of the ring. And Orton says everything that will happen now is on you. And there's a real threatening tone to Orton's demeanor here. I really liked it. Giving this segment an A, again, really blooming love where Orton's coming from at the moment. I really love the attitude and the cadence in his voice and the style. The Ric Flair association's a nice nostalgic touch. Big Show was good in the bits that he came out and spoke. I like Big Show's. Big Show's a good talker. He's always been a good talker, and he was great here. I like the promo. Am I looking forward to Orton versus Big Show as a match? Not in the slightest. It was bad in 2000 and something. It won't be good in 2020. The WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match is not only on now, but it's presented by Sonic Brownie Batter and Yellow Cake Batter Milkshakes. Because of reasons. I like the way they've subtly dropped in these sponsors throughout the episode. This starts immediately with a big boot from Billie Kay and a near fall. This kind of sets the pace for a very scrappy affair between the two teams. Two heel teams fighting, so this is to be expected. The end of the match comes when Banks goes up, nearly gets the fall from Grace, manages to kick out of it and lock in the Banks statement for the tap out win. After the match, Sasha Banks and Bayley are talking, and Sasha is jealous of Bayley becoming a double champion and says that she wants a championship match. And we finally get that a big tease for the breakup, only to find out that Sasha Banks is talking about challenging Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship instead. Oh, they got us. Asuka comes out to accept, and she's beaten up by the tag team champions. She gets a bit in, but she gets beaten down to end the segment. And Sasha does Asuka's dance, which is quite cute. B+ this was. I thought the tag match itself was a short, scrappy, aggressive affair. Kind of what it needed to be. I like the little subtle tease towards the Bayley-Sasha build-up. And I'm excited for Sasha Banks versus Asuka. They'll have some fun. After a near reconciliation between Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan backstage, it's the VIP lounge, and MVP welcomes the man who he thinks is going to be his next client, the US champion, Apollo Crews. Just before this, MVP was saying backstage that basically Apollo Crews needs to make the right choice tonight. And MVP pitches for him to become his manager. Apollo Crews keeps turning him down, saying that he's done everything on his own. He will continue to do that. This brings out Shelton Benjamin, Apollo Crews' opponent for the night. MVP distracts Apollo Crews, and Benjamin gets a side swipe. This match gets underway whilst fighting outside the ring. When we come back from break, they've taken the VIP lounge set down, and there's a match happening in the ring. Benjamin dominates a lot of this with a lot of quick offense, working over the shoulder, which was damaged by being thrown into the turnbuckle post before the match started. And despite the fact that Benjamin gets loads in here, all of a sudden Apollo Crews gets a big wind in this match, manages to hit the enziguri and the big tossing powerbomb for the 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give this one a B. I enjoyed it. Good work from these two. I'm not giving it any more because I wanted them to have more time. So I'm knocking the grade down a bit. Because Shelty B's brilliant. Big marks to Shelty B, who countered an Apollo Crews standing moonsault with an armbar. That looked beautiful. After the match, we see Bobby Lashley, MVP, attacking Apollo Crews. MVP's trying to raise Apollo Crews' hand in the ramp. Apollo Crews isn't having it, so here's Bobby Lashley to wipe out Apollo Crews. Looks like we're leading towards Lashley versus Crews. Intriguing. Main event o'clock, and it's the return of Rey Mysterio. He and Dominic, his son, head out to the ring. Rey kind of chews out Dominic a little bit for last week, disappearing off the radar and turning up at Raw. Whilst he's angry with him for disappearing last week and turning up on Raw, he's actually very proud of the way he handled himself. You would say he's proud and angry. He's prangry. Seth Rollins comes out next to say that it's going to be 2 eyes that get sacrificed. So essentially he's going to gouge 2 people's eyes out tonight. He's then accompanied by Austin Theory and Murphy, and it looks as if Rey and his son are going to get a shoe-in. But here's Alistair Black and Umberto Carrillo to level things off. Dominic gets a couple of licks in on Murphy, which is quite cool. They eventually batter Murphy and Theory. So Rollins is on his own, and it's 4-on-1, and it looks like they're going to gouge Rollins' eye out on the steps, same way that Rey did to him. Then the numbers game comes in again, and here comes Murphy, and here comes Theory back, and then they go to gouge Dominic's eye out as well while holding Ray, but then Black and Carrillo come along with chairs and send everybody packing, and the end of the night, it shows Dominic, Ray, Alistair Black and Umberto Carrillo standing tall, staring down the ramp at the retreating Rollins, Murphy and Theory. B+ to end the night, because B+ has been the order of the day. This was a cool segment. I thought we came that close to seeing Rollins getting some justice, which I enjoyed. I'm surely the payoff is going to be somebody else getting their eye gouged out, isn't it? That's clearly where we're going. Dominic's good as well. Dominic did a bit on the mic here, and he did a little bit of physical stuff as well, and he looked good. He looks like he's developing. So I'm intrigued to see more of Dominic. Take all the grades and I put it in an average grade calculator, and it tells me this week's Raw was a B+ once again. Edge and Randy Orton stealing it in terms of the quality. But all the title matches were still really, really good. This was a really strong episode of Monday Night Raw. It felt focused. There was new things happening. There was builds to stuff. You can get a very clear direction of where they're going for Extreme Rules. And I, for one, really enjoyed it. For some reason, and I don't know what it is. By the end of it, I felt very thirsty for a yellow cake batter milkshake, and I don't know why. I've never thought of having one before, but after watching Raw, I really thought, you know what? I really need a yellow cake milkshake. Love you, bye.